Hello everyone and welcome back to Dragalia Foundry. Thank you for all of your comments on my most recent video. It was great to hear from a variety of perspectives and remind myself of how many ways there are to enjoy this game. I'm still not the biggest fan of the new High Dragon changes. However, I would like to help for those of you who do enjoy this content and those who are still struggling with it. This video is a general guide on how to prepare for and take on the High Dragon trials. I won't cover the specific mechanics of each fight. Instead, the emphasis is on the recommended adventurers to use and a roadmap of how to get your account ready to take on these challenging battles and come out victorious. One misconception I see often is players saying they don't have a strong team of a certain element, therefore they can't do the related High Dragon trial. And although the entry barrier is steep, rest easy that you don't really need an entire team, just one invested unit of each element to take the plunge, since the vast majority of High Dragon clears happen in co-op. Single player High Dragon clears are a very late game activity. One thing you'll quickly realize is that every trial has an opening blast of unavoidable damage. The best current way to test whether your chosen adventurer can meet these HP checks is the Unit Builder site by Junliko, which I'll link to in the description below. Ranged units have a harder time meeting HP checks since their base defense stat is 8 instead of 10. The High Dragon Res Wormprint and the Treasure Trade are generally worth investing in as you ramp up toward clearing the High Dragon trials, though you won't always need them depending on your team composition. There's no cost difference in buying the maxed out copy versus unbinding one slowly over time, so feel free to go either way. And if there's one print which is needed less than the others, it's certainly the Queen of the Blue Seas Wormprint for High Mercury. Typically, DPS units will run one DPS print, one survival print, and a DPS-oriented dragon, although the survival print can be forgone if significant augment investments or defensive co-abilities are present on the team. Healers will have more flexibility, but when you're first starting off, HP dragons tend to be preferred in general. As of the most recent version update, High Dragon trials come in 4 difficulties: Prelude, Standard, Expert, and Master. The might requirements begin at 11,000 at the lowest difficulty and shoot up to 24,000 at the highest. If you're not ready for any of these might requirements, I suggest you continue to play the Void Battle Dragons to help prepare yourself for the High Dragons later on. The rewards from the High Dragon trials also scale up with difficulty, so it's generally best to do the hardest difficulty you can complete. The first 3 times you clear a High Dragon trial each week, you also receive a weekly bonus corresponding to the trial and the difficulty you completed. Prelude is an entry point intended to teach you the mechanics of each high trial, and as a means to obtain your weeklies until you're able to complete the standard difficulties and above. In general, if you can complete any trial on Standard, you're better off doing that for weeklies than you are doing Prelude. This is because the Prelude trial does not drop High Dragon Orbs, a valuable resource used to trade for equipable copies of each High Dragon, for Fafnir statues that boost the stats of dragons of each element, and as a crafting input for the recently added High Dragon weapons. Prelude is mostly a one-and-done type content once you unlock Standard. You can use it to farm Crimson Core, Succulent Dragon Fruit, and normal Dragon Orbs, but double drops on the basic Dragon Trials is a more efficient method. Prelude is probably best practice for Standard if you go into it solo or with weaker weapons, since with a stronger team, you'll likely clear too quickly to actually get a sense for what the real harder difficulties are like. Standard, like Prelude, is only optimal if it's the hardest difficulty you can complete at the time. That said, a general milestone for clearing Standard is having a 5-star elemental weapon, either Void or Core. Of course, Void weapons with a 30% Bane tend to be better than the 20% versions, and generally are a safe choice regardless of the character, although for some, the 5-star Core will be preferred. 4-star weapons work for some units and are even preferred for water and flame healers, for instance. In addition, you will want both dojos for your chosen character at level 16, and both elemental altars close to 30 for a consistent experience. Clearing at a lower investment is certainly possible. It's even possible to get hard carried even if you die at the beginning of the match, but that will be tough in public lobbies. Another challenge with public groups is that certain units are preferred for each trial, which I'll discuss in just a moment. In terms of progression, I would say High Midgard Stormer is the easiest trial, followed by High Mercury, then High Jupiter, Zodiark, and Brunhilde are all a step above the rest. High Jupiter and High Brunhilde do become almost trivial though if you have Gala Cleo or Fjorm with special setups, however. Expert follows the same patterns as Prelude and Standard, but with higher stats for the dragon, and with drops that include Orichalcum as well as High Dragon Tails. Moves which previously did chip damage can now one-shot and two-shot units, making the fight more punishing, especially for those who are just getting their footing in this mode. The amount of damage required to clear each trial in time is also significantly higher, meaning a death may necessitate a reset. Since the rewards are strictly better than those for Standard, I'd recommend doing Expert once it's available to you. Expert is balanced in such a way that if everyone has at least a first tier High Dragon Trial weapon, the fight is similar to Standard difficulty. Having such a weapon with dojos at 31 and altars at 35 is a good benchmark for a smooth experience in Expert. That being said, the drops needed to craft High Dragon weapons only come from Expert difficulty and above, so breaking into that difficulty is the hardest part. For most players, High Mercury's Trial and High Zodiark's Trial will be the easiest entry points to Expert difficulty, since neither fight necessitates a healer, and it's much easier to meet the DPS check without one when not using High Dragon weapons. Try beat High Mercury enough times to craft a Water High Dragon weapon to use against High Brunhilde, then try beat that enough times to craft a Flame weapon to use against High Midgard Stormer. Likewise, try beat High Zodiark to get a weapon to use against High Jupiter. Once you have a High Dragon Trial weapon of each element, the grind for additional unbinds is considerably easier. Master difficulty is the final level to the High Dragon Trials, and the one which most pushes the limits of not only player ability, but also pure stats. In Master mode, not only is the damage needed very high, but the fight itself is remixed from earlier difficulties to present a new form of challenge. Completing Master mode requires relearning the order and progression of combats, all while having the stats and survival to actually finish the battle. For this mode, I would recommend a Max Unbound Tier 1 High Dragon weapon, or a Tier 2 High Dragon weapon for a comfortable experience. Even then, mistakes can be fatal, so I would say this difficulty isn't for everyone. If you can clear Master difficulty, however, it does have the best rewards for the same cost. Just like with Expert, Master gates the materials needed to craft the next tier of the High Dragon weapons. In this case, the horns dropped in Master are necessary to craft Tier 2 High Dragon weapons, which eclipse every other type of weapon in the game to a staggering degree and aren't limited to specific fights either, since they don't have a Bane ability. They have about triple the strength of a core 5-star elemental weapon with no Bane limitations, so I highly suggest you save any Damascus ingots you have for this particular weapon stage. The new High Dragon weapons provide a genuine incentive to learn each trial and power up your teams, but the trials themselves are tough. When you add to that communication difficulties that arise in public lobbies, it can be frustrating, particularly for fights where coordination matters like High Brunhilde. It is already a great accomplishment to clear these trials on Standard difficulty, so props if you have. If you haven't, no worries. This mode definitely is not for everyone, so don't stress if you don't enjoy it. That said, here are a few tips on the specific fights and preferred adventures for each to make your journey just a little bit easier. With each trial, there are certain adventurers who can perform better than others when building on a budget or with limited resources. Healers and units who provide team buffs are foremost among these. Emma for HMS, Elisanne for HBH, and Noelle for HMC are some of the lowest investment adventurers who can clear Expert. However, do note that these roles will be slightly more saturated because they're easier to build. Similarly, Valentine's Hildegard or Verica and Thaniel are relatively budget, yet always in demand. Thaniel is a little harder to build for Expert due to the lack of a 4-star HP Water Dragon, but he is always needed for high Brunhilde runs. Being a specialist in one weapon type is also a good way to play on a budget or catch up, since it means fewer dojo levels to invest in. For instance, Wands covers Noelle and Galacleo. Lance covers Emma and Elisanne. Staff covers Verica and Thaniel. Picking a weapon type and sticking to it is an easier way to catch up compared to trying to build up everyone at once. At a basic level, specifically for public lobbies, my observation is that many rooms are gated not only by might conditions but also by weapon type, restricting player choice for all practical purposes. I would say Noelle, Wedding Elisanne, Victor, and Linyu are preferred for High Mercury. Mikoto, Mim, or Emma, Verica or Valentine's Hildegard, and Student Maribel or Gala Cerise are preferred for High Midgard-Sormer. Ursum or Summer Celiera, Lily, Thaniel, and Elisanne or Fjorm are preferred for High Brunhilde. Gala Yuden, Yachio, Floor, and Hildegard are preferred for High Zodiark. And multiple Galacleo plus possibly a single melee adventurer or a healer like Heinwald are preferred for High Jupiter. It's not to say you can't clear these harder difficulty trials with other adventurers, it's just that it will be very difficult to do so in public lobbies, and even in a dedicated Discord group. The popularity of certain characters is not by accident, since each trial demands various roles be fulfilled, and some units shine at those roles more easily than others. Healers are preferred in public lobbies for every trial at the standard level, but not in HMC Expert, and sometimes not in HZD Expert if 2 Gala Yuden are present instead. Healers may also be skipped in HJP if the run involves multiple Galacleo. The other 2 roles that are very important are ranged and melee Vaders. Many High Dragons use attacks which target the nearest or the furthest adventurer. For just one example, Brunhilde dashes toward and uses a Flame Breath against whichever adventurer is closest to her, while she uses her Dive Bomb against whoever is farthest. The baiters point these moves away from the team. The unique mechanics of each fight regarding what moves can be directed away can make a huge difference. For example, in High Midgard-Sormer's trial, ranged units have a much easier role to play since none of the moves target the furthest adventurers on Expert difficulty and below. A composition of 1 melee and 3 ranged is highly desirable for this fight, so long as the melee understands their job is to direct the tornadoes Midgard-Sormer unleashes away from the group. If multiple melee adventurers are present, those with greater reach like Blades and Lances should play further back to avoid stealing the bait of the closest melee unit and accidentally pointing moves in the wrong direction. Generally speaking, daggers play closest, then swords, then axes, then finally blades and lances. Other melee allies and even ranged units can also step up to bait close range attacks in a pinch or to cover an indisposed melee baiter. Overall, High Jupiter's trial is similarly relaxed for ranged adventurers compared to melee ones. A good melee baiter plays a crucial role in directing the flow of a fight, and as such, this role is also usually in high demand. While this can be hard to play since you will need to learn the sequence of attacks and when to use your iframes well, you're also probably going to be a big determinant in your team's success or failure. Vanessa, Halloween Mim, and Marth for HMS, Rex and Orsum for HBH, Wedding Elisanne and Linyu for HMC, Delphi, Curran, and Yaten for HJP, and Floor and Galayuden for HZD are just a few examples of melee units who excel in this capacity. Among these, Orsum, Wedding Elisanne, and Floor are particularly coveted from what I've seen in public lobbies. An equally important role, however, is that of ranged baiter. This varies from fight to fight since not all high dragons attack the unit standing farthest from them. Often this role falls upon the healer, but it's worth explaining. High Mercury, High Brunhilde, and High Zodiark all have moves which target the farthest unit. In High Brunhilde's case, this should always be your healer, so please, if you're playing Lily, try to stand close to your melee teammates so that Vanyel can stay farther away. Many public rooms prefer not to deal with this fact at all, and instead choose to cancel Brunhilde's dives by running far away with Vanyel, since a dive bomb landing on the team can cost the run. One caution is that vertical distance counts for being the farthest unit, so jump skills like Xainfried's can steal dive bomb bait too. In High Zodiark's case, cages and dashes will sometimes target the farthest unit, meaning Hildegard or possibly Halloween Elisan or Yashio, depending on the difficulty and the team comp. You want to be mindful of when these happen so you aren't caught mid-skill, resulting in a cancellation or even death to a dash. Make sure to also move further out if needed so your teammates don't get caged instead. And finally, in High Mercury's case, her Hydro Cannon, Aqua Prison, and Homing Bubble all target the furthest unit. If you're the only Noelle in your team in Expert or a Lowen in Standard, this means you. The one exception is typically whoever is in the third from the left sphere of Salvation takes the very first prison so that the ranged baiter has time to lead the Homing Bubble away from the group. The Homing Bubble is also a good time to transform into your Freya as Noelle to tank the bubble and proceed with casting buffs. If I could provide one final tip, it's simply this: greed ends runs. With the exception of Master, try to play conservatively, particularly if your teammates already have High Dragon Trial weapons. If you know that your team is borderline to time out, you may want to get more ambitious, but otherwise play it safe. Death is the biggest impediment to DPS, and I say this as someone who's died my fair share. Obviously this won't apply for time attack, but if your goal is consistent clears, then this is my biggest overall tip. The more you play each trial, the better your sense will be of when is safe to attack and when not. There's also several helpful infographics the community has created, which I'll link to in the description below. Alright, and that's all I have to say on the High Dragon trials. I've been reluctant to put together a guide like this for a long time since I myself never play High Dragons much. There was little reason to do so beyond the first clear, considering those wings could be spent in modes like Imperial Onslaught. Having said that, I'm glad there's now incentives in place to encourage people to check out these trials, and I'm happy that the new Expert and Master difficulties are so exciting for many of you out there. Good luck getting those clears and grinding out the new High Dragon weapons. Let me know if you have any more tips or general advice in the comments below. And otherwise, thank you as always for watching, take care, and I'll see you next time.
Nice.